Since episode 1 of House of the Dragon, Daemon Targaryen and Crispin Cole have been introduced as being in conflict with one another. As a matter of fact, most episodes have shown some form of this conflict. Either direct conflict or the fallout that results from conflict. Now, while they may come into conflict quite a lot in the beginning of this season, these two characters begin the show following two very different paths. Despite these differences, these men still seem to intersect with one another quite often. Now, as the season reaches its midway point, it's pretty clear sides are being drawn up and actors are falling into their desired places. So the conflict between these two characters, well, we'll see how it progresses. It is also in this conflict between Daemon and Criston that we're able to see what it is these men would wish to represent, or how they would wish the world to view them. Daemon is blood of the dragon and intends to let everyone know that. While he doesn't seem to be a man keen on ruling, it is true might that he makes his right. Now, his might may take different forms. He is powerful enough and influential enough that he's able to bend the rules to his liking. However, he is not always able to wield hard power as he sees fit and must revert to using soft power to advance his own goals. Daemon is a believer of Targaryen exceptionalism, an ideology that has borne forth great kings and cruel despots. Next we have Criston. He is the son of a steward to the Lord Dondarrion, the same Lord Dondarrion that we see at the beginning of episode 4, shooting his shot. Mayhaps it was a bit rude for Sir Criston to ignore his father's maker, but alas, it was pretty spooky in there with all of the swordplay. So I imagine it's possible for Sir Criston Cole to have forgotten himself. He is low-born, and he doesn't have any particularly lofty aspirations. He tells Rhaenyra that she has risen him up to the highest station anyone in his family has ever known, and given him his honor. He believes that the system rewards honorable actions, and those who can cultivate this environment can expect to reap rewards, either in this world or the other. Cole is not a particularly smart man, but he believes it possible to uphold his vow and also to advance through honorable means. These men seem to represent almost two types of governance or two types of rule: might and justice. I think maybe we can describe might better as fire and blood, and we can describe justice as honor. While honor and justice seem to prevail in King's Landing, Criston is able to enjoy a higher level of success. I think it's fair to say that Criston's honor has served him well. He defeats Daemon, both with the lances and in the melee. He was selected for the Kingsguard, filling the position of Sir Ryam fucking Redwine.
Sir Ryam motherfucking Redwine. Whatever, he died.
Is made the sworn protector of Princess Rhaenyra and generally enjoys success that his family has never seen before. It's this seemingly innocent relationship with Rhaenyra that is first caught in the crossfire of Daemon's schemes. For you see, once Daemon takes Rhaenyra beyond the keep's walls, disguised as a little urchin boy, he awakens within her the joy of just being hot and sexy and fucking your uncle. Daemon then, of course, drops that bitch like a fucking brick and bounces, leaving Rhaenyra to be a little confused, a little frustrated. Upon returning to the castle, her attention turns to Criston Cole and his majestic helm. Any one of us would be delighted to have the opportunity to smash the princess. Criston Cole, however, is no simp and expertly holds his own right up until he throws himself at her. Fuck ya, white cloak. Fuck it in the bin. But genuinely, Criston shows reluctance. And in this situation, there is a very, very big issue with power dynamics, because the power dynamic is not equal. Wow, just like every other episode of Game of Thrones, except fucking this time it's a man. Crazy. Criston has far less of a choice than Rhaenyra, just due to his position. Yes, it is in the end by his own hand that he lays down his white cloak, which is incredibly symbolic. But it shouldn't be ignored that this isn't an entirely fair situation for Criston either. Regardless, it is more so from the actions of Daemon that Criston is now being given the opportunity to break his vows. I don't mean to give responsibility to Daemon for an action that Rhaenyra or Criston took. More so, it's just how his schemes affect the relationships of others in the castle. Now, quick side tangent when talking about Daemon and Criston, because I think this is vitally important and a lot of people just want to overlook this. Obviously, during the tourney, while Daemon and Criston face off, we actually see Criston Cole on horse Daemon Targaryen. Now, I have seen quite a number of people mentioning that Daemon Targaryen is a horse due to the way that he clearly warged the horse in episode 5 to make the horse fall over and land on his bronze bitch. Now, this cannot be true. This cannot be true because, like I said, Criston Cole has unhorsed Daemon Targaryen, which means he is no longer a horse. This is for all of you horse guys. You can clearly see that he's been unhorsed. No longer a horse. Obviously, I will accept that he was a horse before this scene. I'm not disputing this, but he was unhorsed by Criston. I believe this shows a clear difference in horse hierarchy compared to regular Westerosi hierarchy. Therefore, a later incident involving a horse cannot be due to Daemon being a horse. Now, it may be due to the horse's general disgust at Daemon's standing in horse society. Could be another reason for his anger and his resentment and his inability to perform. Usually we know horses or stallions as being these well-endowed, physically, advantageously big penised. But we see Daemon on a number of occasions not only being snubbed by a horse, being unhorsed, but also being unable to horse his cock into anybody. Really makes you think. Anyway, let's head back to Criston and him horsing around with Rhaenyra. With his lifelong vow broken, he kind of starts going off the deep end. He believes that he can reclaim the honor that he lost if he and Rhaenyra were to be married. Understandably, according to Westerosi traditions, if somebody takes the maidenhead of a maiden, then really the only way to make that right is by marrying her. However, Criston doesn't have a plan. He wants to go across to Essos and be a mercenary, a sellsword. Like, what is Rhaenyra going to do? What about her dragon? What about literally anything? I don't know, it just doesn't really seem like an independent girl boss situation that Rhaenyra would like. If he had a decent plan, then sure. But as it stands, no way, no lady is gonna pick that option. You are a low value male. So we see this interesting dynamic where Criston, trying to maintain his honor, succeeds in the first half of the season. But as Daemon's corrupting nature seems to prevail more and more, and not just Daemon, but other characters as well, and as he's allowed to fester, we see the actions of other people being influenced. You know, in reality, without Daemon's intervention here, Criston would never be put in a position like this. And I think that's a general theme anyway over this first season. In the beginning, there was still honor in the realm. People seemed to conduct themselves with a level of prestige, but now it's gotten to the point where schemes and cunning have overtaken. This is obviously very bad for Viserys, who is a king that finds it difficult to be assertive and see everything for what it is in the best of times. It's only 2-3 years after Otto puts Alicent in front of Viserys that he even starts seeing the extent that Otto is prioritizing Aegon. And we get a lot of visual representations of this as well, with the rats and the blood being let to stagnate on the ground. Viserys' own body, of course, where he's festering and rotting. Corruption in general has taken hold of almost all of our main characters by the time we get to the halfway point. So what does this mean? What's the next step? Well, I was thinking that it's quite possible that we can take a look at the trajectory of Criston's mental state for this last couple of episodes. And we may even be able to find a connection between Rhaenyra killing the boar back in episode 3 and Criston killing Joffrey here in episode 5. The brutality and the ultra-violence of both of these scenes kind of seems to reflect the anger and resentment and pent-up rage that both characters are feeling in each specific moment. And it also seems to reduce Joffrey's death down to that of a slaughtered animal, that he wasn't even worth a humane death. Rather, he was just brutalized. Maybe a bit of a stretch, but I believe that both characters in their scene of brutality is feeling a lot of emotions of like being passed over, being discarded, not being good enough, or not being able to fill the position due to your birth. Criston because he was lowborn, Rhaenyra because she was born a woman. Obviously the same can be said for Daemon, who as a second son will have these feelings of being passed over. Additionally, we see Daemon's brutality both in the City Watch and in his battle with the crab feeder. And both of these scenes end with incredibly brutal violence. I think it's a sign of more to come. I don't think we've seen the end of the brutality, and if anything, the brutality is only going to get worse and worse. I know that's not an amazing prediction for House of the Dragon, clearly something setting up civil war between the Targaryens, but I think it should be important to make note of the fact that it doesn't really seem like there's going to be a good guy and a bad guy in this show. Rather, both sides already seem to be pushed to the point where they're willing to do great evil just for self-satisfaction, that it's not even necessarily about the outcome, that cruelty may just end up being too strong of a force to overcome. I think as the series continues, Criston is going to find himself taking more and more part in these acts that are unbecoming of a knight, or anybody with a good sense of morality. But I believe that Criston's purity is behind him, and moving forward we're only going to see a character that more reflects cruelty. Whereas with Daemon, we've seen that many of his schemes seem to be followed by sexual inadequacy or erectile dysfunction, whatever you want to call it. He doesn't seem to be able to perform after doing something that seems to be generally bad, morally questionable. Trying to fucking take his cousin's virginity, trying to fuck the White Worm after his assault on the peoples of King's Landing with his City Watch. So I believe there could be a message of Daemon changing, becoming softer, becoming kinder, potentially allowing more love into his life and becoming more vulnerable, which may be a weakness for him moving forward. I'm not entirely sure how the show is going to progress with these characters. It seems that Daemon is kind of seen as the bad guy because he's been doing a lot of bad shit, but I believe there's still a chance to soften him up even more. Because just in general, I don't buy that he's this all-out bad guy, and there hasn't really been enough softness in the first half of the season for me to really get, he was as loved by as many people as he was hated. Right now it just seems like everybody hates him, except Rhaenyra. So that's where we seem to be going into episode 6 of Hot D. We're about to experience a 10-year time skip, so really anything that's affected the characters now is only going to become more ingrained in their character. So that's really it. I just wanted to talk about how these two characters, Daemon and Criston, keep coming into conflict with one another, either directly or inadvertently. And I'll be interested to see how that continues in the series. If Daemon is the champion for Rhaenyra, then it will be Criston who will be the champion for Alicent. But what roles these men will fill going forward, let's see.
You're going to bring the babe out now.